Henry was a simple farmer living at the edge of a small town in the countryside. He did not own much, just a small wooden house, a modest patch of farmland, and a cow named Daisy. Daisy was not like the strong, shiny cows the other farmers had. She was small, slow, and often seemed clumsy. Her coat was rough, her eyes a little sad, and she walked with a slow, uneven pace. Every day, as Henry led Daisy to graze in the fields, the other townsfolk would stop and laugh. "Why do you even keep that weak cow?" They would shout. "Sell her and buy a real one." Children would giggle, pointing their fingers. Even some adults shook their heads in disbelief. Henry would just smile faintly and nod, saying nothing. He knew Daisy was not impressive, but she was his companion and part of his simple life. Henry's days were long. He would wake before sunrise, milk Daisy, feed her, and then work the land with his own two hands. While others boasted of their new tractors or hired laborers, Henry plowed slowly, guided by Daisy's steady, patient steps. He noticed small things: how Daisy would gently nudge the calves of other cows away from danger, or how she seemed to sense when a storm was coming and huddled close to protect herself. To Henry, these small acts of care and quiet wisdom mattered more than size or speed. One summer, the rains failed. The streams dried up, the grass turned brittle, and the town began to feel the grip of drought. The wealthy farmers' big cows grew weak. Their large herds required water they could no longer provide, and many animals struggled. Meanwhile, Henry and Daisy had learned to live simply. Every day, Henry carefully rationed water and leftover feed, making sure Daisy never went thirsty. He would whisper to her, "We'll get through this together," and somehow, that quiet patience kept them both going. The townspeople watched in disbelief. The strong, proud cows of their herds began to falter. The farmers who had laughed at Henry's small cow were now forced to sell some of their cattle for little money, struggling to feed the rest. Meanwhile, Daisy continued to graze on the sparse fields, slow and steady, never complaining. She seemed to know how to survive when nothing else seemed to grow. Then, one evening, Henry noticed something surprising. A small stream had started to trickle near his land, coming from a hidden spring he had never paid attention to before. Daisy, as always, had led him to it during her grazing. "We tear help water the cow." Within days, the land began to recover. The crops slowly sprouted, and Daisy's calm presence helped sustain the fragile balance between the soil, the water, and the farmer. The townspeople began to take notice. The man they had mocked for keeping a weak cow now had a small but healthy field, a surviving cow, and hope when everyone else faced loss. Some came to ask Henry how he had managed to endure such hardship. He smiled gently and said it wasn't about strength or speed. It was patience, care, and believing that even the smallest, weakest things can survive if you treat them with respect. Daisy became a quiet symbol of resilience. People stopped laughing, though they rarely praised her. The children who had pointed fingers now watched in wonder as she moved slowly through the grass, nudging the plants, quietly existing, never complaining, yet carrying life forward. Henry never asked for recognition. He just continued to care for Daisy, to tend his small land, and to remind himself that success was not about appearances, it was about consistency, patience, and trust in the things you love. Years later, Henry's field had grown just enough to feed his family and a few other townspeople in need. Daisy aged gracefully, still slow, still imperfect, but invaluable. When she finally passed away quietly one morning, Henry buried her near the stream she had discovered. He placed a small wooden sign above her grave. She taught me patience, even when the world laughed. The townspeople never forgot her. They remembered that a small, weak cow had outlasted their strongest herds. They remembered that quiet persistence, care, and kindness often outweigh showy strength or pride. And sometimes, it takes what the world overlooks to survive when everything else fails. So, t'aimes you feel small, weak, or overlooked. Remember Daisy and Henry. Sometimes, the things people laugh at are the very things that carry us through the hardest days. Think about it. What would you choose to follow appearances or to value patience, care, and quiet strength?